Hey everyone, James here with Oasis. I want to talk to you a little bit about coloring and kind of some coloring techniques. I know a lot of you out there, really struggle with the coloring of the panels, whether it's the masonry panels or water feature molds. So just want to talk about materials involved in staining and also kind of how to set the expectation properly, especially in the sales process on the front end, so that you don't get yourself into becoming an artist, even though there's some artistry involved in it, but there's processes that can make it simple or more simple for you, so that you can get kind of an optimal result and get a consistent result, job after job after job. So the first thing I always recommend is creating sample panels for your customers. So I always recommend starting with like 3 or 4 standard color options that you're going to offer your customers, and these can be in like 2x2 square sizes of panels that you can cut and kind of pre-color, so that you can actually physically demonstrate these, so that the customer is aware of what they're going to receive and what the end result of the coloring of the panel will look like. So if you're offering 3 or 4 color combinations, you can start with like a grayscale, you can do an earth tone, you can do a combination of grays and browns, and maybe one other color option if you want to offer another one. But definitely start with 3, and if they want something custom, you can always do a custom coloring scheme, but I always charge additional prices for that. It's going to take you more time, and you're also going to have to create a sample panel or a custom sample panel for that customer. And when you create these sample panels, I always recommend getting the customer to sign off on these. So if you're in the sales process and they agree to a grayscale coloring on the kitchen, then what you want to do is you present that sample and you have them sign off on it that that's exactly what they want. And you have already created that with your guys, and so you know how to basically recreate that when you're on the job. So very important to set the expectation. Otherwise, if you don't set the expectation up front, you can a lot of the times find yourself the last day it's time to color, and you haven't discussed color with the customer yet, or you haven't nailed something down. You're trying to work it out after you've sold it, and then they come outside with the picture from Pinterest or whatever, and now all of a sudden you're trying to match something that's off the internet, and it's very hard to do, especially when the expectation wasn't set on the front end. So setting expectations is very crucial, and it's very key to having success in the coloring process of your kitchens and waterfalls and different things you're doing. So as far as the materials that I use to color, I'm going to show you a technique with an HVLP spray gun. You can get some cool results and some different techniques to get real natural looks. And then I'm also going to show you how to use a brush, kind of different brushing techniques to also get realistic results with the coloring as well. So as far as the materials, pretty straightforward. I like 3-inch just cheap chip brushes that you can buy from Home Depot. I use this if I get any drips when I'm using the sprayer, or if I'm coloring with the brush, and I'll use this to brush kind of scrub the stain in. Just use usually 1 quart measuring cups to kind of measure my dilutions. And then as far as diluting the color, we always recommend using distilled water. Be the cleanest kind of the cleanest mixture of water that you can get, so that you're not having any contaminants. Or if you live in areas of the country where you have hard water and there's chemicals in the water, that can actually break down the components of the stain. So always recommended to use distilled water to dilute your stain. So for this coloring combination, I actually am just going to use 2 colors. I'm going to use them a little bit differently to kind of get different pigments and kind of different color variation. I always recommend, I really don't like using any more than 4 colors in a coloring combination. If you start to get too busy and you're using several colors, it just really starts to look really busy, and sometimes it can actually look worse. So I like keeping it simple and using the colors, usually 2, 3, and 4 colors in a coloring scheme, just keeping it simple, but also having the variation so that it looks natural. I'd say the most important part of coloring is to make sure that your rocks don't look like just one color or everything looks flat. You have to keep variation, because when you look at a rock, most rocks that you see, they're not flat, one-colored rocks. So in order to make it look realistic, you have to keep that variation and use different colors to achieve realism.